The liar's power is an invisible weapon. They look into your eyes, their face stays calm, their voice doesn't tremble, and you believe every word they say, because they're not like you. Their brain works differently. Hervey Cleckley was the first man to discover this truth. While studying psychopathy, he discovered this. Some people feel nothing when they lie. Their conscience doesn't work, their hearts don't race, their hands don't sweat. For them, lying is as natural as breathing, and this makes them dangerous. Because ordinary people carry lies on their faces, but them, they turn lies into works of art. What I'm going to show you today isn't a simple psychology lesson. This is a journey into the darkest corner of the human brain. You'll learn how liars work, why they never get caught, and most importantly, how you can see them. Because as Cleckley discovered, if you want to stop them, you must first learn to think like them. That calm, confident, smiling person standing in front of you might be the most dangerous type of liar. Because they're not just lying, they're rewriting reality. They're shaping your perception. They're manipulating your memory. And they don't break a sweat doing it. So how is this possible? How can a person look into your eyes and tell the biggest lies without blinking, without hesitating? The answer is hidden in the brain. More precisely, in something that's not in the brain, conscience. Hervey Cleckley, in his 1941 book, The Mask of Sanity, scientifically defined this truth for the first time. Until then, psychopathy was only associated with criminals and serial killers. But Cleckley discovered something different. Psychopathy wasn't living in prisons. It was living in everyday life. In offices, hospitals, homes, schools. And the scariest part, these people looked completely normal. In fact, they looked more attractive, more successful, more impressive than normal. Cleckley called this the mask of sanity. Because from the outside, everything was in place, but behind the mask was complete emotional emptiness. Hervey Cleckley once wrote, "A seemingly normal, even attractive person can carry a complete emotional desert inside." These words weren't accidental. It was a surgical observation. Most people pay a price when they lie. Conscience gnaws at them, guilt suffocates them, fear gives them away. But for the psychopath, lying is costless. Because they have no conscience. And without conscience, lying is easier than truth. While you're trying to be honest, they're designing manipulation. While you're building trust, they're setting traps. While you're seeking connection, they're writing scripts. That's why they're always one step ahead, because the game you're playing is not the game they're playing. You're looking for truth, they're controlling perception, and perception is more powerful than truth. Because people don't follow truth, they follow what appears to be truth. Now let me ask you, have you ever looked into someone's eyes and knew they were lying? For most people, the answer is yes, because normal people give clues when they lie. They avert their eyes, change their voice, their bodies tense, their breathing rhythm gets disrupted. But the psychopath does none of this. Their eyes are steady, their voice is controlled, their body is relaxed. Because they don't even think they're lying, they're just saying it. And whether what they say is true or not doesn't matter to them. What matters is whether you believe it. This is where the game begins. Liars don't owe you truth. They owe you illusion. And this illusion is carefully built, ruthlessly maintained. If you want to understand them, you must first accept this. They're not bad people. They're differently functioning brains. What Cleckley found in his research was horrifying. The psychopathic brain experiences blindness in emotional processing centers. The amygdala, the fear and empathy center, works dimly. The prefrontal cortex, the planning and control region, is overactive. This means that while they don't see emotional consequences, they see strategic steps perfectly. When your brain says, "This is wrong, stop," theirs says, "This works, continue." That's why they don't tremble when they look into your eyes and lie. Because their brain doesn't perceive this as a threat. For you, lying is stress. For them, it's a game. And to win at games, conscience isn't a burden, it's a handicap. Modern brain imaging studies have confirmed Cleckley's observations. In psychopathic brains, some regions are literally smaller. especially the anterior rostral prefrontal cortex and temporal pole regions.
What do these regions do? Moral decision-making, empathy, guilt, remorse. The emotions that make a person human.
In the psychopathic brain, these regions are either weak or almost non-existent. Were they born this way, or did they become that way later? Research shows both. Some people are born with a genetic predisposition to psychopathy. Some develop these traits as a result of traumatic childhood experiences. But the result is the same. An adult psychopath no longer changes. Because the brain structure has stabilized, and this structure makes a conscienceless life possible. Now I'll show you step by step how these brains work. First, liars target not your truth, but your perception. They don't focus on what they say, but on what you feel. If they make you feel comfortable, the lie is accepted as truth. If they make you feel safe, control is in their hands. That's why most psychopaths are incredibly attractive. Not just physically, but emotionally. They make you feel understood. They make you feel special. They make you feel chosen. But it's all calculated. Cleckley calls this superficial charm, because it lacks depth. It's like a mirror, it only reflects, never feels. When they talk to you, they use your language, they repeat your values, they read your fears and weaponize your hopes. This isn't empathy. This is calculated imitation. Because real empathy requires feeling, but they only know how to observe. And observation is enough for manipulation. Think for a moment. Was there someone in your life who seemed to really understand you? Who knew exactly what you needed to say? Who resonated with your feelings, but later made everything feel like a deception? This is the sign of psychopathic manipulation. Because they're masters of imitation, not empathy. They read your facial expressions, they analyze your tone of voice, they decode your body language, and then they appear exactly like you. But this isn't connection. This is a predator's camouflage. Just as predatory animals adapt to their environment, the psychopath adapts to your emotional landscape. And you think it's real until it's too late. Second, liars aim for credibility, not consistency. Normal people fear inconsistency in their stories when lying. But the psychopath doesn't care, because they know that people remember emotions, not details. If it felt emotionally real to you, you overlook logical inconsistencies. That's why liars can change their stories each time and still remain believable, because they're not rewriting the story, they're rewriting you, your memory, your perception, your reality. And they don't sweat doing it, because for them, each lie forms the foundation of the next lie. They're not building a building, they're building a labyrinth. And when you get lost in the labyrinth, they pretend to show you the exit. Cleckley wrote about one of his patients. He told the same story 3 different ways. Each time, completely different details, completely different outcomes, but each time with the same credibility, the same confidence. When I showed him the contradictions, he shrugged and said, "What matters to you, the story or the result?" This is the essence of the psychopathic mentality. For them, truth is a tool, not a purpose. Truth is raw material that can be manipulated to achieve the desired result. While you're looking for consistency in a story, they're looking for impact in a story. While you act with logic, they act with psychology. And psychology always beats logic. Because humans are not logical beings, they're emotional beings. Third, liars don't use their conscience because they have none, but they use yours. They make you feel guilty. They shame you for being skeptical. They make you say, "Maybe I'm wrong." This is the darkest form of psychological manipulation. This is exactly what we call gaslighting. Making you question your reality, silencing your instincts, turning your logic to their advantage. And while doing this, they assume the victim role. "Don't you trust me?" they say. "Have I ever lied to you?" they say. And you're crushed under the weight of your conscience. Because you're a good person, you don't want to hurt anyone. But them, they use this goodness of yours as a weapon. When Cleckley realized this, he wrote, "The psychopath plays with the victim's virtue." Because virtue for them is a sign of weakness. The better person you are, the easier you are to manipulate, because good people give people chances, good people forgive, good people believe. And the psychopath uses exactly this. Your goodness is their greatest weapon, your compassion is their strongest shield, your trust is their most valuable resource. And they consume these resources until they're depleted. Then they move on to the next victim, without any remorse, without looking back, because what you make them feel doesn't matter. What you provide them matters. Fourth, when liars make mistakes, they don't apologize. They redirect. For them, apology isn't weakness, it's tactics. I'm sorry, but you also, they say. You're right, I was wrong, but look what you did, they say. They use apology as a shield, not genuine remorse, because remorse requires conscience, and conscience is disabled in their brains. Your apology is emotional, theirs is strategic. Your apology is to repair the relationship, theirs is to regain control, and it often works. Because people want to hear apologies. People want to forgive. People want to believe. And liars know this very well. Let's examine the anatomy of the psychopathic apology. First, they acknowledge, yes, I was wrong. This softens you. Then they provide justification. But I was so stressed at that moment. This evokes understanding. Then they share responsibility. You didn't understand me either. This pushes you into defense. And finally, they assume the victim role. I'm doing my best, but it's never enough. And there you are, not only forgiving them anymore, you're consoling them. You're the one apologizing. And they return to the game with zero conscience, burden. This isn't an apology. This is a maneuver. And if you don't recognize this maneuver, you enter the same cycle again and again. Fifth, the greatest power of liars is variability. They're warm today, cold tomorrow, attentive today, distant tomorrow, generous today, selfish tomorrow. This inconsistency isn't accidental, it's calculated, because unpredictability creates addiction. When you don't know their next move, you're constantly alert. You constantly try to please them. You constantly wait for their approval. This is known as traumatic bonding. And liars use this masterfully. One day they lift you to the skies, the next day they drop you to the ground. One day they make you feel indispensable, the next day worthless. And while you're trying to find balance on this crazy swing, they're controlling you. Cleckley describes this as, the psychopath creates not rhythm but chaos in relationships, because in chaos, control is easier. This is called intermittent reinforcement. How do slot machines work? They don't always make you win, but sometimes they do. And that sometimes reward makes the brain addicted. Psychopathic relationships work the same way. They don't always give love, but sometimes they do. And that sometimes moment binds you. You become willing to do anything to catch those moments. They erase the 10 days they made you feel worthless with one day they made you feel valuable. And you accept the 10 days for that one day, because your brain has entered a dopamine loop. Every time you receive their approval, you experience a reward burst. Every time you receive their rejection, you feel deprivation. And this cycle enslaves you. This is the scientific reason why psychopathic relationships create addiction. Sixth, liars never fully explain. They leave their sentences half-finished. They keep their words vague. They give details blurry. Why? Because clarity is a trap. A clear statement can be questioned later, but a vague statement is open to all kinds of interpretation. You fill the gaps with your own fears. You shape them with your own hopes. And then because you gave meaning to those gaps, you own the lie. This is the liar's greatest trick, making you a partner in your own lie, making your mind the author of their story. When you write the story, questioning it becomes questioning yourself. And nobody wants to question their own reality. Cleckley reports one of his patients saying this: "I don't give people exactly what they want, I give them exactly what they think they want. Until they can tell the difference, the game is mine." This is deep psychological insight. People don't want truth, they want what they believe is truth. And the psychopath offers exactly that. They meet not your need for truth, but your need to believe what you want to believe is truth. If you're looking for trust in a relationship, they give you trust indicators. But they don't give real trust. If you're looking for loyalty in a friendship, they give you loyalty words, but they don't show real loyalty. If you're looking for honesty in a partnership, they give you honesty performance, but they don't offer real honesty. And because you can't distinguish performance from reality, you're deceived, because they're selling you not truth, but the illusion of truth. And for most people, illusion is enough. Seventh, liars are masters of eye contact. But this eye contact is different from yours. Your eye contact is for making connection. Theirs is for domination. They look into your eyes but don't see you. They scan you, they measure your reaction, they test your fear. Cleckley's findings support this. When a psychopath makes eye contact, their amygdala doesn't activate. Meaning for them, eye contact isn't an emotional experience, it's a strategic move. When they look into your eyes, their hearts don't race, because they don't see you as another person. They see you as an object, as a tool, as a target. And that's why they don't tremble when they look into your eyes and lie. Because for them, you're not a person. You're a project, a game, a gain. Modern research confirms that psychopathic eye contact is different. Normal people, when making eye contact, look at the whites of the eyes, the eyelids, the eyebrows, the rest of the face, because these details are necessary to read emotions. But the psychopath focuses only on the pupil. Why? Because they're not trying to read emotions. They're establishing domination. The pupil shows where the other person's attention is focused. And the psychopath wants to control your attention. They want to know where you're looking. They want to see when you're uncomfortable. But they use this not for empathy, but for manipulation. That's why psychopathic eye contact is disturbing. It's very intense, but very empty. They're looking at you, but not seeing you. And your instincts feel this, but your logic can't explain it. Because society tells us eye contact is a sign of honesty. But for the psychopath, eye contact is a weapon. Eighth, liars can never hide forever. Sooner or later, masks fall. But by then, damage has been done. Cleckley observed this repeatedly. At the beginning of psychopathic relationships, they're perfect. In the middle, they plant seeds of doubt. At the end, they leave complete destruction. But what's critical here is this. They feel no remorse for this destruction. They just move on to the next target. Because for them, every relationship is a consumable resource. When a resource is depleted, they find a new one. This isn't a conscience deficiency, it's a survival strategy. Their brains are reward-oriented. They don't calculate risk because they don't feel emotional consequences. They only see immediate gains. That's why they always look forward, never back. Psychopathic relationships have 3 phases. First phase, idealization. In this phase, you're perfect. You're the best thing that ever happened to them. You're the person they've always been looking for. They lift you to the skies. They show you excessive attention. They love bomb you. This phase creates addiction because you may have never felt this valuable before. Second phase, devaluation. Slowly your value starts to drop. Criticisms come. Belittling begins. You're forgotten. You're neglected. But just when you're about to leave, they pull you back up. This alternating movement confuses you. Third phase, discard. You no longer have any use to them. They coldly throw you away. They don't even give an explanation. They just leave. And you're left behind trying to understand what happened. But they've already locked onto a new target. Cleckley wrote that one of his patients said this: "People ask me why I do this. I tell them because I can. Is another reason necessary?" This is the essence of psychopathic logic. Not why, but how. Not conscience, but opportunity. Not outcome, but process. And this logic is too cold for a normal person to understand. Ninth, if you want to recognize liars, look not at their behavior, but at their inconsistencies. They live in the chasm between what they say and what they do. They talk to you about loyalty, but betray. They preach to you about honesty, but lie. They appear to show you empathy, but act ruthlessly. These contradictions aren't coincidence. They're proof of who they are. Because they don't believe what they say, they only believe in its effect. For them, words are tools, not truth. That's why you should look not at their words, but at their actions. They can tell you, "I love you," but be using you. They can say, "You can trust me," but be selling you out. In his work with patients, Cleckley constantly saw this. The psychopath feels no internal conflict between what they say and what they do, because for them, words are performance, not reality. To see inconsistencies, pay attention to these signs. Do their words contradict their actions? Does what they said in the past match what they say today? Are their actions toward others consistent with what they tell you? Are their behaviors predictable or constantly changing? If you're answering no to most of these questions, you have a liar in front of you. But be careful. Normal people can also be inconsistent sometimes. The difference is here. When a normal person is inconsistent, they feel discomfort. They apologize. They explain. They try to correct. But the psychopath doesn't care about inconsistency. In fact, when they see you noticed, they blame you. You're too detail-oriented, they say. You're too obsessive, they say. You can never leave anything in the past, they say. And again, you're on the defense. Again, you start questioning yourself. This is another example of gaslighting, making you question your reality, invalidating your observation, erasing your logic. 10th, the only way to protect yourself from liars is to establish emotional distance. If you think you can change them, you're wrong. If you think you can save them, you're fooling yourself. Because they don't want to be saved. They want to control. And your benevolence, your compassion, your hope are just resources to be exploited for them. Cleckley tried to treat these people for decades. And in the end, he arrived at this painful truth. Psychopathy isn't a treatable condition. It's an unchangeable neurological structure. You can't change them. But you yourself can distance yourself from them. You can set boundaries. You can say no. And most importantly, you can stop accepting their lies as truth. Because the truth is this: when they look into your eyes and lie, you can also look into their eyes and see the truth, but only if you dare to look, only if you want to see, only if you're ready to accept. Establishing emotional distance means what? Believe their actions, not their words. Look at their results, not their promises. Focus on their change, not their apologies. And if there's no change, if everything repeats, if you're constantly in the same cycle, then leave. Don't wait for explanation. Don't wait for closure. Don't wait for apology, because they won't give you these. Or if they do, they'll only give them to pull you back, never from real remorse. 11th, the greatest fear of liars is being exposed. They appear strong but are actually fragile, because all their power is based on deception. When the deception collapses, power collapses too. That's why they keep you constantly on the defense, constantly make you feel guilty, constantly keep you busy, because when you're busy, you don't see them. When you feel guilty, you don't question them. When you're on defense, they're on offense. But if you stop, calm down, observe, the mask starts to fall. That's when you see their true face, the liar in panic, the manipulator who lost control, the psychopath without a mask. And that moment is your moment of freedom. because their power no longer works on you. Cleckley describes the moment one of his patients was exposed like this. When I showed him the evidence, first he denied, then he got angry, then he blamed, then he cried. But he never showed real remorse. He was only sorry he got caught, not for what he did. This is the reality of psychopathic remorse. They're not sorry for the action. They're sorry for the outcome. They're not sad they hurt you. They're sad they got caught. And if they promise to be more careful next time, this isn't a promise of change. This is a promise of better hiding. 12th, Hervey Cleckley's most important warning was this: the psychopath hides within society, not in prison, but in the boardroom. Not in jail, but in hospitals. Not in dark alleys, but in bright offices. They're everywhere, among your coworkers, among the people you love, maybe within your family. But if you want to recognize them, you must learn to think like them. You must understand how their brains work. Because before they understand you, you must understand them. This isn't a war. This is awareness, an awakening, a liberation. Research shows that 1 to 4% of society carries psychopathic traits. This means that of every 100 people you meet in your life, at least 1, maybe 4, is a psychopath, and most of them aren't in prison. Most are in successful positions. CEOs, lawyers, surgeons, politicians, salespeople, journalists. Because psychopathy provides advantages in some professions, it makes risk-taking easier. It makes ruthless decisions possible. It frees from emotional burden. That's why they rise, they win, they appear successful. But behind them, they leave broken people, destroyed relationships, devastated trust. In his last book, Cleckley wrote this: "The psychopath is not a flaw in society. It's a feature of society. To understand them is to understand society. To see them is to see reality. And to protect yourself from them is to protect yourself." 13th, liars don't just tell big lies. They start with small lies. They test. They change a small detail. They skip a small truth. They distort a small event. And they watch your reaction. If you don't object, the lie grows. If you accept, the lie deepens. If you don't question, the lie becomes normalized. This is how, over time, reality gets distorted. The reality you know and the reality they create diverge. And after a while, even you can't be sure which is true. This is like the frog experiment. If you throw a frog into boiling water, it immediately jumps out. But if you put it in normal water and slowly heat it up, it doesn't notice the moment of boiling, and it dies. Psychopathic relationships are like this too. At first, everything seems normal. Then slowly, the heat increases. Small lies. Small manipulations, small boundary violations, and without realizing, you adapt until you're boiling. And at that point, getting out becomes much harder because you've forgotten what normal is. 14th, liars never work alone. They create a system around them. Flying monkeys, the herd, proxies. These people sometimes unknowingly serve the psychopath. Sometimes they spread their lies. Sometimes they isolate you. Sometimes they defend them. And you struggle not against one person, but against a system. That's why it's so hard to get out of psychopathic relationships. Because you need to leave not just that person, but the entire system they created. Cleckley defines this as the psychopathic ecosystem, a network of people revolving around a psychopath. Some are their victims but don't know it yet. Some are their accomplices and benefit. Some are their defenders and believe them. And these people together make you question your reality. They're not like that. You're exaggerating. Maybe you're too sensitive. They were just joking. You're misunderstanding them. When these sentences start coming to you from people around you, know that the psychopath has started isolating you. They want you to see your reality only through their eyes. They want to cut off your support. They want to silence your voice. And while doing this, you become alone against everyone. That's when you become most vulnerable. 15th, the most effective way to recognize liars is to trust your instincts. Your brain perceives danger without your awareness. A tightness in your stomach, a lump in your throat, tension in your back. These aren't coincidental. These are warnings your body sends you. But you silence these warnings with your logic. I'm exaggerating, I'm paranoid, I'm being unfair. and thus you disable your most powerful protection mechanism. You no longer have to be a victim. You no longer have to be manipulated. You no longer have to believe lies, because now you know. The reason they look into your eyes and lie isn't that you're weak. It's that they're different. Their brains work differently. They have no conscience, and this knowledge is your shield, your power, your freedom. Listen to your instincts. Your body doesn't lie. That discomfort you feel, that's your subconscious screaming danger. If someone looks perfect on paper but something feels wrong, listen to that feeling. Because liars can fool your logic, but they can't fool your instinct. Set boundaries and protect them with consequences. The psychopath understands boundaries but doesn't respect them. They only fear consequences. If you say no but don't enforce it, you have no boundary. Your words must become action, or they remain empty. Don't lose yourself fighting them. Because psychopathic relationships don't just take a person from you, they take you from yourself. They erode your identity. They rewrite your reality. Until you look in the mirror and don't recognize who's looking back. This is the greatest damage. Not material, not emotional, existential. Hervey Cleckley's final truth was this: the psychopath shows us that conscience is not a choice, it's hardware. Some have it, some don't. And for those who don't, morality is calculation, not feeling. They didn't choose to be bad. They were born or became conscienceless. And in a conscienceless world, lying is the most logical strategy. When you understand this, you stop trying to change them, you stop expecting from them, you just distance yourself, quietly, resolutely, forever, because they won't change. But you can. You can be stronger, more awake, never deceived again. Knowledge illuminates darkness. Knowledge breaks manipulation. Knowledge dissolves lies. And now you know. Now you know how their brain works. Now you know their tactics. Now you see the mask, the rules of the game, the tricks behind the illusion. And if these truths disturbed you, if you're now reevaluating some people, then this worked, because truth is always disturbing. But the only thing not disturbing is continuing to be deceived. And you won't be deceived anymore. This is Cleckley's legacy. Recognizing liars isn't weakness, it's strength. Seeing them isn't paranoia, it's awareness. Running from them isn't escape, it's salvation. Stay hidden, but never forget. Real kings never wear crowns, but they always see. They always know. They always stay awake. And you're awake now.